0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Phixated podcast. One of two this week. I am your host, Mike Azalina, and I'm joined by a guy who had to hear me talk up the best pasta dinner I've ever had here in New Jersey. Regz, your home state gave me one of the best meals of my life.
Not just talk of, but make me extremely jealous with a picture. I loved your order, and I very much want to have it. So I guess explain to the people.
If you are ever in Trenton, New Jersey, find your way to Hamilton, which is like 15 minutes away, and go to Spagola. Was suggested to me today, looked on Google. It met my requirements of being on the road, at least 4.5 stars with at least 500 reviews, and it crushed. I am typically not someone who goes to Italian restaurants on the road because they're always letdowns. Growing up in an Italian family where everybody made their own sauce and so on and so forth. But this was like homemade pasta, homemade sauce. The owner was behind me speaking Italian to everybody who walked in the door. Everybody who worked there, everybody who walked in was Italian. Like it felt like a scene in The Godfather.
Mm-hmm.
I ordered calamari, which is always a staple order for me, and it was very good calamari. So it set the tone. But then I ordered rigatoni vodka, and dude, I would have eaten that sauce off cardboard. It was so good.
Yeah.
I will be going back in April and May when I come back here.
I love it. It's great stuff. Very jealous.
I did send Regz a picture of.
I freaking love calamari too.
Oh, it was so good. It was like sometimes it's rubbery, right?
Yeah.
Like sometimes it can be rubbery. This was perfect. It was perfect. It was like soft and it was the perfect texture of calamari and the perfect amount. All of it. Just such a good meal. Oh my gosh. I don't even want to talk about the bad stuff that we have to talk about here in a second.
I know. It's about to bring the vibe down.
We're going to bring the vibes so down. Now, this episode is the first one you're listening to this week. Regz and I could not find the sweet spot last week. Regz had some family in town, then I had family in town for my birthday. So we couldn't find the sweet spot. So we decided to just do 2 this week. We're splitting them into teams. So we're focusing this one on the basketball team and the baseball team. Yay. And then you'll have a second one later in the week that is specific to what is going on with the Eagles. There's so much happening with the Eagles right now that trying to put this all in one show would have been too overwhelming. So we decided to split it into 2. So you're getting 2 this week, a little kind of bonus episode, but really one that you were owed anyway. But we'll treat it as a bonus episode. All right, so Regz, I think we got to go here first, unfortunately. It was announced last week that Joel Embiid would be shut down for the season, and he's going to have experimental surgery, which we'll get to that in a moment. That will not just end his season, but I mean, it pretty much, in my opinion, puts him at risk for the rest of his career. I don't know, Regz, if you could have written, this is coming from an author, if I could have written a worse season than the 10-72 year. But they might have reached it here with the big deals for Embiid, for Paul George, and here they are with like the 6th worst record in the NBA.
Yeah.
I want to let's just start with, what does this mean for Joe? And we'll get into the team in a moment. I sort of want your, I know where you stand with who Joe is and sort of the player. But I'm curious just like where this news has you thinking, like what is next for Joe?
I mean, I'm with you. I think it's a tragic end to a highly gifted player. Um, say what you will about what I think of him as, the leader of a basketball team, but if you're trying to win an NBA championship, you can't deny the man's talent and his ability with a basketball in his hands when he's on the court and healthy. He's one of the best basketball players on the planet. This is unfortunately what seems to happen with guys this size and this weight. Nobody seems to escape it. Nobody this big and this tall escapes it. It's yeah, I just view it as a very tragic end to this guy's peak as a basketball player.
Yeah.
We had the MVP season. You get the season after that where he's like, we just want to focus on winning and all this stuff, and it ends with, lower extremities that always seems to bite guys that are this big and this tall and this, try to play this sport.
Yeah.
So you could call it a highly predictable but very tragic ending to Joel Embiid, the basketball player.
Yeah, man, let me just, from what I understand, they basically have to break his leg to fix his leg, like the way that I understand this surgery. I don't know how that's gonna translate for like a 300-pound dude. I don't know how that's gonna fix him. It's devastating. I mean, look, he's gonna be remembered for never getting out of the second round.
Yeah.
That's what people are going to remember him for. We've torched him on this very show for sort of his body language, his attitude at times. But I do want to I want to pause and just like reiterate what you said, in that Joel Embiid, when healthy, was the most dominant player in the league. It's unfortunate that health was always sort of in the forefront of the storylines when it came to Joel, because when he was on the court, he was just an unstoppable force. And I don't know that we're ever going to see him back on the court. If they do, it's going to be shell of self, in my opinion. I mean, look, maybe the surgery fixes him somehow. I put the chances of that at like 20% max. It stinks. It stinks. It's funny because we want to kill Joe for, and I say we, I mean the fan base, and national media. They want to kill Joe for never getting out of the second round, and the process failing, because that's his nickname, right? Um, he was followed by 2 first-round picks who were supposed to be transcendent and didn't, or first number 1 picks who were supposed to be transcendent and didn't do crap. Both are basically out of basketball at this point. Like, it was front office negligence. They traded away the one guy who I feel like could have won a title with Joel Embiid and Jimmy Butler, and kept Tobias Harris around. It was just mistake after mistake after mistake. And the what ifs are always going to be lingering over top of us. What if Sam Hinkie didn't get forced out of Philly? That's going to be the one that always associates to Joel Embiid when it comes to my thoughts. It's not going to be what if Joel could have stayed healthy. It's going to be what if Sam Hinkie didn't get pushed out. What if they didn't draft Ben Simmons or Markelle? I think Ben Simmons was always going to be the pick. Everybody thought that was going to be the pick. But what if it wasn't Markelle Fultz? What if it was Jason Tatum? Like, what if, right? So it stinks. And that kind of brings me to this next lane. I think we can officially say the process is dead. So what now?
Yeah.
Like, what is the plan? This is a pretty good draft. Like, it's a pretty good draft. That being said, there's a lot of rumor floating around um, in Durham right now that Cooper Flagg is strongly considering not coming out. That a lot of Duke alumni is throwing money at him to stay, and he's not thrilled about the teams at the top of the draft, and he might stay another year to try and, I mean, he can make as much money at Duke as he would being the number one pick, maybe even more. So, what's the plan? You get that top pick this year, like 5, 6, right? You don't have to give away that pick if you land in there. And if that's the case, you suck again next year, and maybe you get a chance at Cooper Flag,
Yeah.
and you start this with Maxey, Flag, and whoever else, and McCain, and whoever else you pick,
Yeah.
right?
I think that is the way they have to go. It will be organizational negligence if they allow this top pick to go away.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what it takes. Shut Maxey down. He's hurt now too. Send anybody out there you have to that's not going to win you a basketball game, because you can't run the risk of this pick going higher than 6.
Right.
You can't let this pick go away.
Did I read Maxey got hurt last night?
He's been hurt. He's had the hand thing, and then I think he had something with his back.
Like a lot of pain last night from what I read. Yeah.
It's not good, and he's not playing well because of it.
Right.
So if you allow this team to be in a position where they could somehow be number 7, like it's top to bottom, it's negligence on behalf of this front office and ownership. Right. You can't allow that pick to go away. It can't happen. It can't happen.
I'm begging.
So I think that has to happen, and then I think you're absolutely right. I don't think you can't get rid of Embiid at this point. No one's going to take him. He's still got several years left.
Paul George.
Yeah. I don't know what next year looks like, but I think for this year, it's real simple. You cannot let that pick get away. You can't, it's just bottom line. Can't let it get away.
Yeah. It's so devastating. We're fortunate. They're fortunate that the Eagles did what they did in the postseason, because no one's really caring a whole lot, right?
Yeah.
No one's waking up today,
right,
and angry because the Eagle. Now, if that wasn't the case, and we had to forge a month of distractions until the Phillies started, then yeah, it would have been really painful to be the Sixers organization.
Mm-hmm.
They next year they could be at least a semi-fun team to watch if McCain and Maxey are both healthy and they get a top 5 pick.
I agree. Keep Yabusele. McCain comes back.
Although,
Maxey.
Yabo said that he is interested in checking out what
I'm sure he is. He's made himself a good amount of money.
Yeah.
This year.
Yeah.
So I get it. But
the Sixers doing what they did at the deadline, they have plenty to bring him back. I don't know that other teams will be able to quite match what they can do from like a mid-level perspective, but he's going to at least go out there and check it out.
Yeah, sure.
And he deserves that.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I'd hope he'd come back. And you're right. You get McCain back, Maxey's back.
But I mean, it's the simple answer is there's no more question. This is Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain's team. So there's no we don't have to transition. We don't have to talk about this anymore. This is it.
And whoever, you land in the top 5.
Exactly. That's what I mean. Moving, yeah.
You've got 3 really good pieces to start.
Yep.
So let me ask you this. Are Daryl Morey and Nick Nurse back next year? Or is there an entirely new direction for the organization?
I'd like the answer to be no, but I think it's more likely that Nurse is gone and Maury stays.
Okay. I don't trust the ownership to make the right decision. It's lazy ownership. We've
Yeah.
talked about this so many times on this show. He's just gonna do the retread stuff. It's the same, he did it with Maury, he did it with Nurse, he did it with Doc. It's lazy.
Yeah.
There's no, when you look at what the Eagles do, there's a plan. There's something that they look for. It's not a retread. Sirianni was clearly, Doug was clearly, these guys were clearly not people that anybody else was looking at.
Hmm.
And the Topper, the same thing. Like, obviously, that was a different situation. Like, the Phillies tried Kapler, it didn't work, so they did go a little more traditional with Girardi, and then that didn't work. They slid Topper in, and he was successful, so they've kept him around. But it feels like the Sixers are not willing to go that direction.
Yeah, because you absolutely
But
need a coach who's ready to develop people, not is in we
yes,
have to like make it as far in the playoffs as possible mode.
right. Okay. Well, we will certainly keep everybody abreast of what is going on with the Sixers. We haven't talked about them.
Yeah.
We haven't had to. The Eagles have taken so much of our time on this show. And if you've listened to us in the past, we've spent time on the Sixers when, there's something to talk about. I, but we're not going to waste your time
Yeah.
with a
Exactly.
team that doesn't give us anything to talk about.
Yep.
And this was it. You didn't give us anything to talk about for 3 months. So um, we spent a little time tonight because this is a franchise altering
Yeah.
scenario,
Mm-hmm.
and we had to at least address it. So we'll see what happens. We'll keep checking in on news with Joel, and when the draft rolls around, we'll do what we did last year, and follow up with thoughts. Free agency, the same thing. So,
Mm-hmm.
but we are going to turn our attention to a team that the season is not that far off. Like, it is. We are like 3 weeks from opening day.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily sneaking up on us. It's coming hot and heavy here. And it, we we've had mixed bags on this off season, but as spring training has started, there's a lot to be excited about with this baseball team. The first of it being the pitching. And I
Yeah.
don't just mean the starting pitching. I think there's some stuff to be excited about all across the staff right now. And we're not gonna go crazy here. We wanted to talk about it because when you look at spring training, um, you are looking for certain things with a team, and some of that is just the ability of the pitchers to show the stuff is there and they're executing. And there have been guys who right out of the gate have executed. And I want to shout out two starters and a reliever. All lefties, by the way. Um, but Jesus Luzardo, Chris Sanchez, and Jose Alvarado have all shown velocity and have all shown the ability to control the pitches in the zone. And I specifically want to say two things about two of these guys. The we'll talk. We've talked about Luzardo, so I want to say something about Chris Sanchez first. Um, Chris Sanchez, according to JT Realmuto, first of all, Chris Sanchez is throwing 98 right now,
Yeah.
like averaging 96.7, which is a few ticks up. Now we'll see what happens when he stretches out a little bit
Yeah.
more, if that continues. He's gotten bigger. He's definitely filled out. So there's a chance that velocity is going to stick. But the thing that struck me was JT talked about, we know that Sanchez is a fastball changeup, like that's his thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? But he wanted to improve the slider. So he almost, according to JT, has like two sliders now. He has two different shapes to his slider, which is crazy to
Yeah.
consider. He improved the initial and added another, which makes him incredibly dangerous when he's coming at you 98 with that ridiculous changeup, and now he's got two slider shapes. The other thing that I noticed in a Jose Alvarado appearance, not only is he throwing 101, and still throwing his cutter 95, he's now throwing a curveball,
Yeah.
which he's always had, but
Yeah.
it's never used. And I feel like, was it Zalecki who
Yeah.
talked about
Zalecki
it?
on the Phillies show. Yep.
I don't remember if it was that or during the broadcast, and Amaro saying, I couldn't remember who it was, but just like when they asked him about it, and he was like, I just need to show that I have this other pitch. Like
Right.
they need to think like, oh, he can throw this, even if he throws it one time an inning
Right.
and it's not first. At least they know he's willing to throw it.
Yeah.
Uh, but he threw it like 2 or 3 times the one game, and I was like, was that a curveball? So hopefully he brings that north with him. But I do love what I'm seeing from these guys. I
Yeah.
think it's really telling, from a bullpen standpoint and from a starter standpoint. It's
Yeah.
important.
I completely agree. Sanchez looks fantastic. And I think the thing to point out about the velocity that I think of a lot is that the biggest problem with Chris Sanchez before was that he was trying to throw too hard and his command suffered for it.
100%.
This guy has put in the work to get stronger, to build up his body to a place where it doesn't look like he's like trying to shove to get to 98. He doesn't look like he's trying to overthrow to get to 98.
Mhm.
And like even if he's just a little amped up, it's the first time he's throwing, blah blah blah, even if it sits 96, 97, you know what I mean? Even if it sits in that range, it's just such a difference when you have a changeup like he does. The difference in velocity is so important. And the fact that he's able to command it, he's not just chucking it up there so guys see how fast it is. He has to be able to establish his fastball like inside to righties. He has to be able to hit corners with it. It has to be effective for the changeup to work. Or else we've seen teams sit on the changeup. When he's struggled, teams are just sitting on the changeup. So it's really important that he has the fastball and can command it as he has been. Like you said, the slider things, that's awesome. That's great.
Yes.
The more that you can make hitters think about that, like, again, it's so hard to hit in general. The more they have to think about, the better for you. I'm just so impressed with his work ethic and like where that guy has come from.
Yeah.
And even after signing the contract, which admittedly, he self-admittedly was like, this changes my life. Like this changes my life, my kids' lives, their kids' life. It changes generations of his family. He didn't sit back. He came into spring more in shape, willing to make changes, not being like, I was an all-star. I should just maintain what I'm doing and it'll all be the same. I give him a lot of credit. And by God, if Luzardo keeps looking like this, like I'm going to wet myself every time that guy takes the mound because Jesus, it's just so fun. It's so fun to watch.
Yeah.
It's so much fun because it's just
It's so
all the
free.
dread.
There's no effort.
It's
There's no effort.
Yeah. It's converting all the dread that we would have when we had to face him. Like, let's hope we win this game 2-1 against the Marlins, after he goes 8 innings and only lets up 1 run. And now it's just like, oh my God, we have that guy.
Yeah.
And I think the best thing was like, he said the same thing after obviously coming off the injuries. He said something to the effect like, my arm feels alive again.
Right.
And it's just like, oh my God.
It's so free and easy. Who said it? JT was like, we have a number 1 and 4 number 2s.
Yeah.
And when you have that in baseball, your you're set up for success. Now here's the other piece to that from a starter standpoint. It's funny. I saw a lot of people all angry about Zach Wheeler's start today. He does this every spring. We talk
Mhm.
about this literally every spring. He has these games in spring. He was up there throwing all fastballs. He threw nothing but fastballs
I was
today.
about to say this was a Zach. Go keep your arm warm for 2.5 innings.
It was probably Zach saying, "I just want to test my velocity today."
Yeah.
That's what it. Um, but the plus in this scenario is Taiwan Walker was throwing like 93 this week. This time last year's like barely hitting 89. So, that's a huge positive. Now, there's a chance that if he puts together a couple of good outings, he might end up getting traded, which for us is not the end of the world. I think that, we would all be okay with that. But if he doesn't, he's the guy that floats into the rotation if something should happen. Um, there's also, don't forget, Andrew Painter is going to be
Mm-hmm.
floating around minors, right? So they are, from a pitching perspective, 7 or 8 deep right now, which is just because during a season, Regs, you need 9, 10 pitchers
Yeah.
to be able to start a game for you.
Yeah.
So at this point they've got 7 built in. Joe Ross will probably start a game. There's 8. You can put Strami out there if you have to start a game. You got Mick Abel floating around. Um, I don't think that what do you call it? The guy who started a bunch of games for him last year is gonna uh, Phillips is
Spencer.
gonna stay.
Tyler Phillips.
Yeah, I think Tyler Phillips
Yeah.
is gonna end up. He'll be
Yeah.
released. But when you consider how they got to 90 plus wins last year, they did it with Ranger on the shelf, Taiwan Walker on the shelf, and they were basically starting you and me every fifth day,
Yeah.
fourth and
Yeah.
fifth day,
Yeah.
and still found a way to get to 90 wins.
Yeah.
A lot of people want to talk about this team was 51 and 51 the second half of the season after that huge start. Well, yeah, they also were basically throwing 3 guys every week. Like
Yeah.
there the offense, whatever, but they weren't getting good pitching out of 2 spots in the rotation,
Right.
a majority of the nights. So this is huge to have this kind of depth because even if like you're gonna lose guys here and there, but it's not like last year where it's there's nobody. You've got guys, so I'm excited about what the pitching situation is for
Yeah.
sure.
Absolutely.
So before we wrap this episode, I wanted to just do, it's way too early, right? Like how many games have they played? 7
Yeah.
at this point,
Yeah.
8, right? But it's never too early to do some hot takes and some pleasant surprises. We're gonna as we get closer to the season, we're gonna do what our where I do like the really bold prediction type things. We're gonna get into those. But for the time being, I just want to do a couple of hot takes. We'll each do 2. And then just a pleasant surprise. No hot takey things, just something that you're happy to see from the team. But do you want me to give one of my hot
Yeah.
takes?
Yep.
Okay, I'll start here. It's going back to the pitching. We didn't talk about this guy. Ryan Kerkering will be top 5 in saves by the end of the year.
There you go.
And now here's the thing. I do believe Romano is going to start with that job.
Yeah.
And I don't know that he's going to lose it, but I do think Topper is going to just find a way to sneak Kerkering in because Romano has looked good. He truly has. But I do think that they're going to want to transition Kerkering into that role
Mm-hmm.
as the season goes along, especially if he's going to throw the way he's looked so far.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good God.
Yeah. That was another great thing to see was him being kind of, right where we need him to be. Because
Lights out.
he's the biggest one who we're asking to take like this huge leap. You have to, when you consider how young he is, how many seasons he has, under
Yeah.
his belt, it's
Yeah.
it's not a lot if you'll remember.
No.
So
No.
yeah.
It's good to see though. All right, what's your first one?
Mine's gonna be Bryson Stott will hit over 300
I
this
like
season.
that. I like that.
I think
I
we
like
see
that.
his
Better
his
bats.
approach is kind of back. He's not afraid to get to 2 strikes. I forget who wrote the article on him, but somebody did, and he kind of even with the injury and things, he admitted that, you know, I wasn't as comfortable being in 2 strike situations and knowing that
Mhm.
I can just foul balls off and then get to my little hit into left field or left center to keep the line moving. So I've been encouraged with his at bats, um, with what his approach looks like. I think that's the biggest thing, is that his approach is back. Because like I've said before on this podcast, I think his superpower is getting to 2 strikes and being able to like go from there.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see that back.
No, I love that. Um that's a really good one. We talked a lot about him on here, and I think that injury really held him back last year. So we'll keep an eye on that. But I think him hitting 300 is very much in the cards. All right, so I went offense here too. Max Kepler will be top 3 in 3 or more offensive categories on the Phillies roster. I don't know which ones, Regs. I do believe he'll probably be top 3 in OBP. I'd see it from um, just from a selection standpoint. I do believe he might end up being top 3 in home runs.
He's
I
looked great.
dude, the swing is, you know what the swing is? The swing's Raul Ibanez. It's Raul Ibanez. And if you get first half 2009 version of Raul Ibanez from Kepler, like that's all you can ask for.
Yeah.
But I can see him ending up top 3 in home runs. Like Schwarber's always going to be one, but who's like what else? Who else? Like Casty maybe?
And
Like
I mean, I
Bryce?
feel like they're all in the same boat there. Like Casty, Kepler. I mean, you
His
probably say
his
Bryce, is
swing,
probably second.
his swing is built for
Yeah.
right field assistance bank.
Yeah.
So I definitely see home runs as a potential there, and maybe average. He's like it's possible. Walks, he could easily be there in walks
Yeah.
when you look at this team. Just watching him early on, early returns for me are his approach is sound. He's got a swing that finds the ball.
Hmm.
He does not wail. His swing is very direct to the baseball. Um, so I do feel like he's going to be an addition that really helps. So he's my second hot take. Top 3 in 3 or more offensive categories.
It's a good one.
Thank
I
you.
don't know what I want my last one to be. Hmm. All right. I think Jesus Luzardo finished second on this team and wins.
Okay. I thought you were gonna say second in Cy Young.
I'm not going that far.
I like it. I like it. I think that's fair. Behind Wheeler.
Yep.
Why don't you do your pleasant surprise first?
My pleasant surprise has been Marsh's at bats against lefties.
Ah,
I've
okay.
been pleasantly surprised. I wasn't sure how they were going to go. I thought there was a scenario where it's what everybody's talking about. He knows he's going to get more at bats against lefties in spring training because they want to see his approach. And you could press in those situations. Guys could press in those
Yeah.
situations when he's literally like fighting for his life, to be an everyday player. And I didn't feel like he was pressing. I thought he had some really good at bats against some really tough lefties, like specifically against the Yankees.
Hill. Yeah,
He
Tim
had
Hill.
some fantastic at bats.
He was great.
Does he still swing and miss a little too much on like hittable pitches? Yes. But he wasn't getting himself out.
Yeah.
So I was very pleasantly surprised.
I agree. We were texting about his at bats against lefties specifically that day. He got Rodon, who's not the same guy, right?
Yeah,
And you know, it, depending on, I mean, Dominguez is a pretty bad outfielder. I don't know if that's caught by other guys, but it was good contact either way. And then the Hill at bat was
that one was the one.
truly
Yeah,
special. That
yeah,
was a special at bat. And that's I think that's all we need Marsh to remember going into this year is that you like with 2 strikes, yes, swing in the zone, but just shorten up.
right.
Like you're gonna strike out. Like you're just not, but it doesn't have to be the amount. If you
Hmm.
shorten that swing up, he swings so big, I think during the during the really difficult times of the year where they're playing so much baseball. I need them to not forget these approaches.
Right.
And he's one that I need that from.
Yeah.
Um, my pleasant surprise is Gabe Rinconis.
Yeah.
And and here's the thing. It's just a dude who's always hurt. He's
Yeah.
always hurt. Like for those that follow the organization and the prospect pool at the level that I try and follow it, the talent has never been in question. The dude's swing, there's so much power there.
Yeah.
There's swing and miss, but there's so much power. It's just always been injury. And it's been such a nice, like, he's made a ton more contact. The swing looks fantastic. The power is so real.
Yeah.
Like, the balls that he's hitting are not
Yeah.
spring training wind home runs. They are, I hit the
Yeah.
snot out of
Yeah.
baseball home runs.
Yeah.
And look, he's probably gonna go. I want him to start in AAA, but I think they're gonna play it safe and let him start in AA. And look, if he can have a successful year run here in AAA and really make this organization believe in him and stay healthy, then, that helps them next year with the Kepler scenario. Like, Kepler plays well, they don't have to spend money, they can just stick Rincones in left field, and if he needs another year, then maybe he's the Castellanos replacement, and they bring
Hmm.
someone else in to play. Like, but this is a really nice surprise because when you talk about the prospect situation, the names that we constantly talk about are Miller, Crawford, Painter, Tate, Cabrera, like those are the names that we talk about. It is very rare that we mention Gabe Rincones. The only time I have is in my mock trades. So it's cool to be able to talk about Gabe Rincones from a um this dude could be legit stance. And so he's been my pleasant
Yeah.
surprise early.
That's a great one.
Yeah, I don't think I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think he was sent to minor league camp today with the rest of the guys.
Oh, I don't actually know.
I don't think he was. I saw Crawford, I saw Miller, and I saw another name, but I don't think I saw Rinconis's name thrown onto that list. While you're looking that up, one more thing I want to talk about here before we end this episode. We talked about JT Realmuto and we talked about Kyle Schwarber in their contracts ending at the end of this year. One guy we didn't mention was Ranger Suarez. And Ranger was asked quite a bit about it today because he pitched middle of the game. Interestingly enough, he didn't start, but he came in out of the bullpen, which again, interesting, but we'll keep an eye on that. But they asked him about it after the game, and he was pretty open, more so I think than most potential free agents, especially Boris free agents, about wanting to come
Yeah.
back
Hmm.
because this is he called it his childhood
Yeah.
team. He's grown up in the organization. He's made a lot of friends here. He's made a home here. His family's moved here. It's the only place they've lived in the United States. Um, so I don't know. I'm we've talked about, like I said, we've talked about Schwarber, we've talked about JT. We have not talked about. I just had a foregone conclusion in my head that Ranger would be gone, and now I don't know that that's the case, man.
Yeah. It was, a couple people had articles today about this. Obviously, he spoke to everybody. I mean, you love hearing it.
Yeah.
I think we all love Ranger. Like, we love Ranger.
Yeah.
He can be obviously very up and down.
Mhm.
I don't think he himself has gotten himself in like the best shape to be a one or two, a number one or a number two
Right.
consistently. But he has to be talked about in the upper, the upper parts of threes and fours in baseball. Like, when he's good, he's very good. He's a great fielder. He is a great teammate by all accounts.
Mm.
So I think it was great to hear him say that, because we love Ranger. I think, as a fan base, we love
We do.
Ranger.
Yeah, we do.
I think, unfortunately, when you talk about who's coming behind him in Andrew Painter, he's kind of the odd man out, just because he is falling into free agency, right? And
Yeah.
everyone else is still controlled past this season. So it's very difficult to see them re-signing him as a free agent when you have a guy like Andrew Painter, who by all accounts will be in your starting rotation next year. And I would think it as an organization, they would like to keep Ranger. I think maybe I don't think it's really a thing unless the market for him out there like just isn't there. To come back and like be a long man out of the bullpen with potential starts, like, that's probably not going to happen. You don't sign Scott Boras to go be a long man in the bullpen. Again, something would have to change pretty drastically for what his market, will be when he gets there.
Right.
It's just kind of a timing thing, I think, in my head. I don't think it has anything to do with Ranger, the pitcher, the teammate, the guy. It's just, you have this guy coming up who's a number one prospect, and you have a guy who's reaching free agency who's been a little inconsistent, but is obviously a great pitcher when healthy and throwing well. It's just one of those things that happens sometimes.
It's funny that you mentioned the bullpen, because I think that's the only way he would come back.
Yeah.
Is if and that's what I find interesting about his appearances so far. He and Walker are the only two that have like come in out of the bullpen, because I do think that they are the two that are in competition.
Yeah.
To start. There's no question that Wheeler, Nola, Sanchez, and Luzardo are starting. The competition is between Ranger and Walker. It would be interesting if, to strengthen that bullpen a little bit more, Ranger goes out there and pitches out of the pen. Ranger is, you've already mentioned, a great teammate, great dude. Like, he's not gonna complain.
Mm-hmm.
And the Phillies, the free agent or not, the Phillies don't owe him he is not guaranteed the opportunity.
Right.
He does fit perfectly in the mentality of a bullpen, because he just gets guys out. He gets guys out. He's done it before. He's coming out of the bullpen and been an effective closer at times. And the one place where I feel like the Phillies are a little bit short is left-handed relievers.
Yeah.
They're like, it feels like they're one arm. We've talked about this. It feels like they're one arm short in the bullpen. When it comes down to it, if Taijuan Walker can start, then why not? Why not? Let him start the year as a starter, and let Ranger be the left-handed arm out of the bullpen, and see how that goes. Like, going from your three lefties being Tanner Banks, Jose Alvarado, and Matt Strom, to Ranger Suarez.
Yeah.
It's a big difference.
Yeah.
So just something to keep an eye on. Just something to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
Did you find whether or not Rincones was sent?
He was not.
Okay, so he's still hanging around.
Yep.
And this is not me saying that he's making the team,
No,
folks.
right.
Please hear me. This is just they want a longer look. They want a longer look as teams shorten their their rosters and you start to see more major league caliber pitching, I think the Phillies want to see what he can do against that. So something to keep an eye on. Anything else you want to touch on with the Phils, Rex?
No.
We covered a lot.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we will be back later this week with a look at the Eagles. If you're watching on YouTube, we'll be in the same outfits because we're recording this all together. So, but we'll be back with a look at the Eagles. We're going to talk about the stuff they've done, the stuff that's still coming, and we'll take a look at who their potential free agents are and whether or not we think they're staying or going. So make sure you check back in for that. We'll do all the follow. You know where to find us, where to follow us. We'll take care of that in the second episode. For now, just if you're watching on YouTube, click subscribe, and if you're checking it out on wherever you get your podcasts, make sure you click follow and rate us. And then go on social media and search us. You'll find us on all the social media pages. I love you guys, and thanks for listening to this Joel Embiid Phillies specific episode. We'll be back with the Eagles later this week. We love you guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Oh my God! Deep to right field, way up there and way out of here.
The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions. Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you.
The 0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.